Hello, I'm Oliver Jones, and you're listening to Cigar and Whiskey with Yannick Thiriou.
Folks, I'm at the Crown Royal Hotel in Fredericton with none other but one of our illustrious greats in jazz, Mr. Oliver Jones himself.
How are you doing?
We're doing swell. We hope that you're going to have a fun time here. Before we started the interview, we were talking off camera about your quote-unquote retirement. And in 2000, they were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Montreal Jazz Festival, and you were actually contacted in regards to playing for or with Oscar Peterson. Probably one of his last active concerts, if I remember correctly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And after that, the rest was history. You were supposed to be completely retired. You dusted off the ivories for that event, and then all of a sudden you were telling yourself, I'll do maybe 10, 15 other places, but you ended up doing over 80 locations from that day forth. And right now, this would be your last time, officially speaking.
Well, I'm hoping so.
Okay.
I feel it's time, and I know one thing for sure: we have an abundance of great talent across Canada to carry on. That's for sure. And my health, is not the best, and I believe that it's time to go out when you can still at least play a few notes. And but I've been, since I came back in 2004 with the concert with Oscar Peterson. I've been doing, let's say, between 65 to 80 concerts in a 6-month period.
Okay.
6 months I live in Florida, and 6 months I live at home in Montreal.
What part of Florida are you currently snowbirding?
I'm in Deerfield Beach,
Yeah.
which is right next to Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, well, there you go. My parents are doing the same thing. I think a lot of Canadians are doing the same thing, especially with the last winter. You were born in 1934.
That's right.
Currently, if the age range is correct, you're 81 years old.
81 right now.
81 right now.
Since last week.
Okay, well, bonne fête, comme on dit. Bonne fête en retard. You were born in the Little Burgundy, which is a part of Montreal.
That's right. Actually, we still call it Saint-Henri.
Okay.
It's only when I came back in 1980 that I heard Little Burgundy, and I didn't know where they were talking about.
Okay.
But it's really the old Saint Henry, where Oscar and I both grew up.
You began your career as a pianist at the age of 5.
That's right.
You studied with Oscar Peterson's sister, Daisy.
That's right.
Daisy Peterson Sweeney, to be specific, starting at 8 years old. Both the same teacher, I'm assuming, at that point? Or
I had another teacher prior to Daisy for a year and a half.
Oh, so Daisy was your teacher?
Daisy was my teacher for the
Okay.
second teacher.
Okay.
I had Madame Bonnet was my first, and when we moved close to the Peterson house, then I ended up switching piano teachers, and very happy because it also gave me an opportunity to listen to Oscar play and be part of a tradition in that area. In St. Henry, there were a few black clubs. The only place really, if you wanted to hear jazz, and somehow it got to me because my parents didn't know anything about this music. boogie woogie or jazz and that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was all new to them. And my other two sisters who studied piano, like myself, they studied classical music, but they didn't stick with it very long.
Well, they went for a better calling, I'm assuming, at one point or another. As they say, music finds you mostly before you find the music.
That's right.
That's usually the case. Now, before the mid-'80s, you performed a solo novelty act at the Café Saint-Michel, as well as various clubs and theaters in the Montreal area.
Ça, c'est à l'âge de 9 ans.
Ah ouais? So, à l'âge de 9 ans, 9 years old, folks. In the mid-'80s, you then started traveling throughout Canada, appearing at various festivals, concerts, and clubs. You were either as a solo artist or with a trio, which was composed of Skip Bay, Bernard Primo, and Archie Alain. Is that correct?
And also, most important, Charlie Biddles.
Oh, there you go. His travels, your travels, actually brought you to Europe during this entire period as well. So you probably want to, I think it's called the Montreal Jazz Festival, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the most famous one. And
well, during that period, I used to work Europe probably about 4 to 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
A lot in Spain, France, Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
and England. And so there was a lot of traveling back and forth, about 250,000 miles a year. And so I did that for about 14, 15 years. And then I started going to New Zealand, Australia, Japan, China. So we traveled quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it was also very helpful because of my record producer, Jim West,
Mm-hmm.
promoted. So I had my records in just about all of the countries, so that helped a great deal. And I was traveling at that time with Dave Young,
Mm-hmm.
sometime Archie Alain, and or Normand Villeneuve.
Okay, so you had ready to go people that would normally follow you, all depending on who was available due to certain dates or certain things that they were doing independently, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
You also taught, now this is the fun facts of Mr. Jones. He taught at the Laurentian University in 1987, and in 1988 he taught music at McGill University in Montreal. Now, did you follow up with teaching longer than that, or was it just a one-year period?
No, actually, in here in what's the name of the first place?
It's Laurentian.
Yep, Laurentian University. That's in Sudbury.
Okay.
And that was the very, very first place that I was offered professorship.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it. I used to go up about 5, 6 times a year,
Uh-huh.
stay for a week, work with the students,
Uh-huh.
and I enjoyed it. I did. I think you learn a lot yourself when you're teaching. So I did that, and of course, being home, and the club that I played at was called Biddles Jazz and Ribs,
Okay.
and it was just down the street from McGill. So I had a lot of McGill students in, and so they gave me a professorship to. They had just started their program about 6 or 7 years before that.
Okay.
So I came home, but before that I was in Puerto Rico for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And playing, I was director, a musical director for a pop group, which I enjoyed. A fellow by the name of Kenny Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So we lived in Puerto Rico for 15 years, and but in my mind I always wanted to come back to Montreal to be able to get a job playing jazz. So it was good timing for me. So I came back home in 1980, and of course the Montreal Jazz Festival had started the year before, in '79.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came home during a period that was very active in Montreal. And of course the festival, those first few years, they only had like 4 or 5 people in the office to direct the whole thing. And to see what they've accomplished, and for the last 10 years they've been the biggest jazz festival in the world. So I'm very, very proud of them. And what they did, they took me under their wings, because I got the opportunity the first year to open with, do the opening for Tony Bennett, and then the following year for Ella Fitzgerald, and then Sarah Vaughan, Buddy Rich. I did opening. Also, I played with Montreal Symphony during that period.
Mm-hmm.
So they featured me in every aspect, either it's a soloist, a duo, trio, with the big band, also with gospel choir, the Montreal Jubilation Gospel Choir.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that happened in Montreal in jazz, Charlie Biddles and myself were involved, and so it kept me very, very busy.
And so you were always deep in the events,
Yeah.
more than likely.
And during the time, because when I came home from Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was home for good. I wasn't planning on traveling anymore. And before I knew it, I was gone at least 8-9 months a year.
Wow. Mid-40s, thinking that you'd be back for good, and off you go with another dose of wanderlust in your blood in regards to making sure that the music lives on anywhere else. It's simply amazing. I don't know how I would go through that myself, but I know when you have something that you're passionate about, it's very difficult to walk away from it.
Well, you know, Yannick, probably the greatest thing for me was that I was getting the opportunity to play with artists that I've known of for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of duo piano with people like Dave Brubeck and Marion McPartlin and Hank Jones.
Wow.
And so it was very, very natural when I got the opportunity to do a concert with Oscar Peterson. Not everyone gets an opportunity to play with their idol, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me.
In 2009, you mentored jazz artist Dion Taylor through the Governor General's Performing Arts Program, the mentorship program, that is. How, apart from that particular person, any other mentorships that you've taken up throughout the years after 2009?
I was doing so much traveling, and I was also working with Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, and so any time that they had any celebrities that or invitations from different countries, I would like all the ambassadors, the royals, Queen Elizabeth, whether it was Nelson Mandela or also President Clinton and so forth. I did all of those concerts, and so it gave me an opportunity to do various things, not only in jazz clubs and jazz festivals. And I think this is why I enjoyed coming out of retirement, being able to travel to different places. I did the opening of the Olympics in Barcelona. So it was just wonderful opportunities for me to be in different places, and I was in Africa when Nelson Mandela was freed for the first time.
Okay.
The government sent me to South Africa, and so I got the opportunity of playing for him on 3 different occasions, and there was wonderful opportunities for me as a jazz musician to be able to represent Canada, and so it continued over the years, and so now I could look back with a lot of wonderful memories, and say that yes, I've done my part.
Yeah, that's a certainty, Mr. Jones. Based on the following, folks, listen to this, and you can correct me when if I say something completely wrong. October 1993, you were named as an Officer of the Order of Canada, one of Canada's greatest awards when it comes to being recognized by the government and the populace. In 1994, the National Order of Quebec gave you the rank of Chevalier, which in English would be the equivalent of knight, a knighthood basically. 2005, you were given the Governor General's Performing Arts Award. In 1986 and 2009, you won for each year a Juno Award. One was for the album Lights of Burgundy. The other one was Second Time Around. You were nominated 9 other times, and most recently in 2012 for your album Live in Baden. You were a multiple recipient of the Felix Award, receiving your first of your first one for your '89 album Just Friends, which, if I remember correctly, was released through Just in Time Records, right?
All of them, all of them were done through Just in Time.
And then wins in '94, 2007, and 2008 for the Felix as well.
Well, Felix, I have at home 11 Felixes, and that's always fun because it's from my province, and it's always a thrill to be, whether you win or not. I feel that we're producing all the time, and that it's helped the label. It helped me be able to promote other artists onto the label. We had wonderful artists like Rennie Lee. We had the Montreal Jubilation Choir, and they both have become Juno winners. And one of the things that I've always tried to do is to promote our young musicians. And so up until the last jazz festival, we we were able to do a concert with three great young pianists, and so this is something that's very, very important to me, and that's to be able to keep the jazz alive in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I have had a big project that I worked on
Mm-hmm.
with Mrs. Oscar Peterson, and she produced a record that will be out this winter, and it's with 16 different pianists from all over the world.
In honor of Oscar Peterson's memory, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I read about it, and I'm looking forward to the album coming out.
It has just about everyone that we know of on there. So it's these are the things that I think is very, very important to me as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to say, yeah, we're carrying on the tradition and legacy of the greatest jazz pianist, artist that we've ever had, Oscar Peterson. And it has been working out really well, and both Mrs. Peterson and the daughter worked extremely hard to keep Oscar's name and his legacy alive. And so I think people will be very excited about this album.
Oh, well, that's a certainty, but you were no slouch yourself right now. In 2006, you received the Keyboardist of the Year award from the National Jazz. In 1990, you became the second recipient of the Oscar Peterson Award presented by the Montreal Jazz Festival. And I just lost my sheet. In total, yourself, your own collections, your own creations, your own recordings, you have 23 albums, the first one being live at Biddle's Jazz and Ribs.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one in 2013 being Just for My Lady, and the Beatles one was in 1983.
That's right.
So 30 years of recordings, and that's not counting those that you've actually participated with, being a special guest on, doing an appearance with.
That was a lot. That was a lot.
The fun thing about Mr. Jones is that he is down to earth, and I'll tell you how down to earth he is. We found out that one of his favorite quotes was the following: "I had a trick piano act, dancing, doing the splits, playing from underneath the piano or with the sheet over the keys." And as you can see from his expression, and you may not feel it through the camera, but I can feel it, that this man probably did that and a whole
don't forget,
lot of others.
I was a kid when I was doing that, and about 150 pounds lighter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. We still have that in our hearts. And once we do it, we always want to do it. Your tour of Nigeria was the subject of a 1990 National Film Board of Canada documentary called Oliver Jones in Africa. Your music also appeared in the National Film Board's animated short film Black Soul. In 2011, you were one of the big names on the lineup at the PEI Jazz and Blues Festival at Charlottetown, and you were headliner for the Jazz Sudbury Festival in 2013. And this is where everything started from our conversation about your retirement, because it stated Oliver Jones retired, in quotes, in 2000, but still makes over 20 appearances yearly, including numerous charity benefits.
Well, the only thing different from that is that I do, since my quote retirement, I guess we still do between 60 and 80 concerts, but
Wow.
about 20 of them are benefits
Okay.
that there's so many people that have called to see if we can help them do certain things and to raise money, and that's important. So, like my family always says, one of the things that I can't do is say no to a good cause. And so I believe that even though I'm planning on retiring perhaps next year, that I probably will continue to do bénévole benefits for especially children's funds. There's some that I have become associated with, and I think they're very, very important. So for myself to be able to do one or two numbers on these shows, I think it's very, very important to me, because like you say, I don't think that after all of these years, last year was 75 years of performing since my first concert, and I've gotten a wonderful reaction from the people in Canada, which is important. And so I do believe it's interesting, and for me to be able to give back to my community and to this country, because they really made my career wonderful memories. And also I finally got over the years to see every province. I played in every continent, but most important, I got to see places in Canada that no one thinks there's music there, you know. And along the way, we run into some wonderful young, wonderful and older musicians, and so that's great. And it's a wonderful legacy that I'd like to leave, is that it's very, very important for us to continue to encourage our artists that we have here in this country, because they truly are tremendous, whether they're in classical music, whether it's country and western. We have some of the greatest pop artists now, and they have to be recognized also.
That's true, though. When it comes to music, I think Ray Charles said it best: music is music. It doesn't matter if you're doing country, western, if you're doing pop, if you're doing dance, if you're doing a whole bunch of different styles. It still comes down to, like you said, Mr. Jones, that it needs to be supported. There's no one that can be pushed away from that. Sure, myself, I'll support artists that I enjoy, but each one's taste is different, so that's why the styles still exist for classical, for jazz, for rock, for blues, and a whole bunch of others. But you've seen all of those colors, and you've given your style and your influence without even knowing sometimes, to young and up-and-coming people that have made their careers based around you as one of their idols. Folks, let's thank Mr. Jones for this particular interview. I wouldn't have dreamed in my 40 years of being alive in Canada that I'd actually get to meet such a fine man of the jazz.
I thank you kindly.